Protein is now at Starbucks, and it's never tasted so good. Try our all-new caramel protein lattes with up to 31 grams of protein and options with no added sugar. Level up your drink at Starbucks.
If you've spent your life feeling like your inner world, your thoughts, feelings, and emotional reality somehow matters less than everyone else's, you've experienced the systemic devaluation that patriarchy inflicts on women. This isn't just about individual relationships or family dynamics. It's about a cultural system that teaches society to dismiss women's inner lives as less important, less valid, and less worthy of attention than men's. And narcissistic family members and partners use this cultural blueprint to justify their emotional neglect and scapegoating. Welcome back to the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast. I'm Lynn, your host. Today, we're examining how patriarchal systems create the perfect conditions for narcissistic abuse by systematically devaluing women's emotional experiences and inner lives. Patriarchy doesn't just limit women's opportunities in the public sphere. It fundamentally devalues everything that happens in women's inner worlds. Your thoughts, feelings, intuitions, and emotional experiences are treated as less significant than men's from the moment you're born. This creates a cultural environment where dismissing, minimizing, or completely ignoring women's emotional reality becomes normalized. This systemic devaluation shows up in countless ways throughout your life. As children, girls are taught that their emotions are too much, too dramatic, too sensitive, too intense. Boys expressing anger are seen as strong or passionate, while girls expressing the same emotion are labeled as hysterical or difficult. Girls learn early that their emotional expressions make others uncomfortable, so they need to manage not just their own feelings, but everyone else's comfort with those feelings. This conditioning creates a foundation that narcissistic systems exploit ruthlessly. In families where narcissistic dynamics dominate, the systemic devaluation of women's inner lives becomes weaponized. The narcissistic parent or family member doesn't have to work hard to convince others that your emotional reality doesn't matter. Society has already laid that groundwork. You might have experienced this as having your feelings dismissed as hormonal or irrational, while male family members' emotions were taken seriously. Your concerns about family dynamics were labeled as you being too sensitive, while aggressive or controlling behavior from others was excused as normal. The narcissistic family member could count on cultural conditioning to support their narrative that your emotional responses were the problem, not their behavior. This systematic dismissal of women's inner lives makes it incredibly difficult for you to trust your own perceptions. When your emotional reality has been consistently devalued, you learn to question whether what you're experiencing is even valid. This self-doubt becomes a powerful tool that narcissistic individuals use to maintain control and avoid accountability. In romantic relationships, this devaluation shows up as emotional labor being expected from women while their own emotional needs are treated as optional extras. You're supposed to manage the relationship, anticipate your partner's needs, and maintain emotional harmony. But when you express your own needs for emotional support or connection, you're told you're being needy or demanding too much. The patriarchal devaluation of women's inner lives also means that women's intuition, their ability to read situations and people accurately, is systematically dismissed. You might have had strong gut feelings about someone's behavior or motivations, but when you tried to express these concerns, you were told you were overthinking, being paranoid, or reading too much into things. This is particularly damaging because women often have highly developed intuitive abilities precisely because they've had to become experts at reading emotional environments for their own safety and survival. But patriarchal conditioning teaches everyone, including women themselves, to dismiss these insights as less reliable than logical, rational analysis. When your intuition about problematic behavior gets consistently dismissed, you learn to override your own warning systems. This makes you vulnerable to people who count on your conditioning to ignore red flags and give them the benefit of the doubt even when their behavior is clearly harmful. The systemic nature of this devaluation means it's reinforced everywhere you go. Teachers, family members, friends, co-workers, and romantic partners all participate in a system that treats women's emotional experiences as less important. This makes it extremely difficult to recognize when someone is specifically targeting you for emotional abuse because the dismissal feels so familiar and normal.
Protein is now at Starbucks, and it's never tasted so good. Try our all-new caramel protein lattes with up to 31 grams of protein and options with no added sugar.
Level up, level up, level up, level up, level up.
Level up your drink at Starbucks.
Patriarchal systems also teach women to find their value in relationships rather than in their individual experiences and achievements. Your worth becomes tied to how well you maintain connections with others, not to the richness and validity of your own inner life. This makes you vulnerable to people who will exploit your relationship focus while giving nothing meaningful in return. The devaluation extends to how women's contributions are recognized and valued. Emotional labor, caregiving, and the work of maintaining relationships and family harmony are treated as natural female instincts rather than as valuable skills and contributions. This means your efforts to create emotional safety and connection often go unrecognized while being simultaneously expected and demanded. In narcissistic family systems, this plays out as you being expected to manage everyone else's emotions and relationships, while your own emotional needs are treated as burdensome. The emotional work you do to keep the family functioning is invisible, but any attempt to prioritize your own emotional well-being is seen as selfish and disruptive. This systematic dismissal of women's inner lives also means that women's anger, in particular, is pathologized and dismissed. When you express legitimate anger about how you're being treated, it's reframed as you being irrational, unstable, or difficult, rather than as a valid response to problematic behavior. This keeps you focused on managing your emotional responses rather than addressing the behavior that's causing those responses. The patriarchal devaluation of women's emotional experiences creates a perfect storm for narcissistic abuse. The cultural foundation already exists for dismissing women's concerns, minimizing their emotional needs, and treating their inner lives as less significant. Narcissistic individuals don't have to work hard to gaslight you. They just have to tap into conditioning you've already internalized. But here's what this system doesn't want you to understand. Your inner life is as rich, complex, and valuable as anyone else's. Your emotional experiences provide crucial information about how you're being treated and what's happening around you. Your intuition has been honed by years of having to read emotional environments for survival, making it incredibly accurate and worthy of trust. The problem was never that your emotions were too much or that your needs were unreasonable. The problem was a system designed to convince you that your inner world mattered less than everyone else's comfort and convenience. Recognizing the systemic nature of this devaluation helps you understand that the dismissal you experienced wasn't about your individual worth. It was about a cultural system that benefits from women not trusting their own emotional reality or demanding that their inner lives be respected and valued. Here's something to reflect on. How has the systematic devaluation of your inner life made it easier for others to dismiss your experiences of emotional neglect and abuse? Thanks for being here today. If you're working through the ways patriarchy has shaped your family dynamics and your own internalized beliefs, I want you to know this work matters. Unlearning generations of conditioning isn't easy, but it's how we break these cycles. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure you know about the resources available to support this journey. If you're ready to dive deeper, I've created Forward Rising Academy with an Intro to Narcissistic Abuse Recovery course that is a great comprehensive course to get you started on this path. You can find that along with somatic healing sessions and our recovery workbook at waketheelephant.gumroad.com. And if you're finding value in these episodes, we have ad-free versions and bonus content over on Supercast at narcissisticabuserecovery.supercast.com. For additional resources, visit our website at movingforwardafterabuse.com. This is Lynn, and this has been another episode of the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast. I'll see you in the next one. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The content shared is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please seek help from a qualified professional or contact a local crisis hotline.